All right, all right. Welcome to the discipline of waiting course that we have all been waiting an hour for. I'm so glad you all could make it here today. We're just going to spend about 20 to 30 minutes together. And I want to be really clear before we start. As we go through this, I'm not talking about passive waiting. I'm talking about active waiting. So listen very carefully to what I have to say here because this is the moment that the moment I'm going to be discussing here is the moment where you either make it or you break it. It either works out or it doesn't. These are the moments, this in between time when you're waiting. Okay. So today we're talking about something that most people avoid, but literally every leader had to master, which is the discipline of waiting. Again, not passive waiting, not lazy waiting, not praying and hoping, not I guess I'll just see what happens kind of waiting, but disciplined waiting. This kind of waiting forms identity. It's the kind that builds capacity. It's the kind that determines whether you can actually sustain the thing that you're praying for. So I hear, especially Christians, a lot of the time talk about they're praying and they know it's going to happen for them. And they quote certain scriptures. I'm not going to quote them, but they do. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But that's passive waiting. Most people think the hardest part is starting, but it's not. The hardest part is staying steady when nothing seems to be moving. Drop a yes in the comments if you felt that. You got started, but then whatever thing you started, nothing is moving in the way that you think it should be moving. That in between space between the promise and the fulfillment, it's where most people panic. And today we're going to reframe that space because that space is not punishment, it's preparation. So before we talk about how to wait well, we need to talk about and understand why waiting feels so hard. Waiting confronts your nervous system. When there's uncertainty, your body reads it as unsafe. And when your body feels unsafe, it wants to move. It wants to fix something, change something, announce something, pivot something, spend something, force something. So delay can feel like rejection, and silence can feel like abandonment, and stillness can feel like a loss of control. But here's the truth. Most of the discomfort in waiting, it's not about the outcome. It's about your relationship with uncertainty. And if you can't regulate yourself in uncertainty, you will absolutely sabotage yourself in increase. Waiting exposes your level of internal stability. I'm going to say that again because write that down. It's really important for you to identify this and know this. Waiting exposes your level of internal stability. And that's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to develop. So if you know what you need to develop, then you know what you need to work on, right? So I need to dismantle something right here, right now. Most people think waiting equals inactivity. It doesn't. Waiting is not passive, it's formative. You're not standing still, you're being shaped. When nothing appears to be happening externally, something is always happening internally because waiting builds capacity. Before your income is going to increase, your capacity must increase, which we talked about in the last training. Before your influence expands, your stability must expand. And before your responsibility multiplies, your restraint has to deepen. If the external growth outpaces the internal growth, collapse is inevitable. And so waiting refines your identity. When the spotlight is off, when the results are slow, when nobody is validating you, who are you? I don't want you to answer that in the chat. I want you to answer that internally. Think about that. When the spotlight's off, when no one's recognizing you, when the results are slow, when you're not winning, and when nobody is validating you, who are you? Do you still show up? Do you still do the right thing? And do you still believe? This is identity work. Waiting strengthens endurance. And endurance is deeply underrated, especially in business. We don't talk about it enough. Endurance is necessary if you're going to grow to the next level. Anyone can start strong. Very few can stay strong in the middle. Scripture tells us in Isaiah 40:31, those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Notice it doesn't say they lose strength, it says renew. Waiting done correctly is not draining. In fact, it's strengthening. Waiting also reveals what's inside you: impatience, comparison, control, entitlement, doubt. But revelation, it's not condemnation. When waiting exposes something in you, that's not a failure, it's refinement. It's an opportunity for you to figure out how to get better so you can get to the next level. Waiting is like fire. It burns off what can't go where you're going. The goal is not just to arrive at the promise. The goal is to become the kind of person who can sustain it. So if you have impatience, comparison, control, entitlement, and doubt inside you, that can't live where you're going. It needs the waiting season to expose it so that you can fix it. There's a consistent biblical pattern. Anointing comes before appointment. David was anointed as a king long before he ever sat on a throne. There was a wilderness season, there was obscurity, there was refinement, there was danger, right? There was misunderstanding, but the oil came before the crown. And this is important. Just because you're called, just because you feel called to something doesn't mean you're ready yet. Just because you have a promise doesn't mean it's time. Waiting is where preparation happens. Psalm 37:7 says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him." Stillness is not weakness. Listen to this part. Stillness is trust. The gap between promise and fulfillment, it's not empty. It's developmental. You're learning, you're refining, you're growing. If you rush the appointment and you bypass the preparation, right? If you rush the appointment, you're going to bypass all the preparation. You're not going to be ready when you get there. And anything you bypass in preparation is going to surface in pressure. When we build tech, I'm always saying, okay, it looks good in testing, but we need to apply pressure, meaning we need to put people into the app and see how they break it so we can fix it and refine it. That's the waiting season. The same thing is happening with you as you're growing into leadership or growing into your new identity or growing into the new person you're becoming. The throne exposes what the wilderness built, or it exposes what the wilderness didn't build. This is where it gets real. Waiting is not exposing God's faithfulness. It exposes ours. Let's say that again so it really lands. Waiting is not exposing God's faithfulness. It's exposing our faithfulness. Faith, the definition of faith is belief before evidence, right? When things slow down, do you tighten your grip? Do you try to force movement? Do you create chaos just to feel momentum? You may not realize you're doing this, but by the end of this training, I think you're going to realize some things about yourself. Hopefully, you're going to identify some things in yourself. So when they come up again, you don't do them and you start to get into that refinement phase. Sometimes we don't feel failure. We fear stillness because stillness confronts what we've been outrunning. James 1:4 says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature, complete, lacking nothing." You must let it finish. Don't interrupt your own development. Some of you are in a season where nothing looks dramatic. There's no big breakthrough. There's no collapse. There's just this quiet. That quiet is doing something inside of you. Waiting reveals where your identity is fragile, where your ego is loud, where your trust is thin, where your nervous system is reactive. But revelation is mercy because what gets revealed can be healed. That should bring you hope. The question isn't, why is this taking so long? The question you need to start asking yourself is, a better question is, what is being built in me right now? So waiting is not a vibe, it's a discipline. And discipline shows up in 4 areas. You have emotional discipline, financial discipline, spiritual discipline, and behavioral consistency. So first, emotional discipline. When you feel the urge to react, announce, quit, pivot, send the text, post the thing, blow up the plan, pause. Pause. Ask, am I responding from peace or panic? Nothing is an emergency. There are very few emergencies in our lives. If you can learn to pause in these moments, Wait to respond, wait to react. You will start to find your emotional discipline increase. Second, financial discipline. Waiting means not overspending to look successful, not chasing every opportunity, not abandoning systems prematurely, and not trying to buy momentum. I see this all the time in my business. People are overspending to try and look successful. They're they join one opportunity, then they join three more, and then they try to do all of them. They try to create their own little systems. They come to me and they tell me, just happened yesterday, they tell me how great their new system is. They've enrolled one person or they've sold one thing, and they're trying to come tell me that their system is so great and they're going to start using it. It makes no sense. Impulse is expensive. Maturity is steady. And then you have the third one is spiritual discipline. Waiting means staying faithful in private, being the same person in public that you are in private, continuing your daily work, showing up when no one applauds you, trusting when you cannot trace. Habakkuk 2:3 says, though it tarries, wait for it. Delay is not denial. Delay is not denial. The fourth one, behavioral consistency. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. It means doing the same right thing long enough. I'm going to say that again because it's so important that you write that down. Waiting does not mean doing nothing. It means doing the same right thing long enough. Consistency is what proves belief to yourself. Anyone can be excited at the beginning. Leaders stay steady in the middle. Here's what most people misunderstand. You don't grow into capacity after the increase. You build capacity before it. We talked about this on the last training. Capacity must precede increase. If you pray for more income or more influence or more responsibility, but your nervous system cannot hold pressure, you're unconsciously going to push it away. This is why the waiting season is so necessary, and we should be grateful for it, because your body will interpret increase as threat. Waiting is going to stretch your capacity slowly. It builds emotional strength. It builds restraint. It builds discernment. It builds regulation. Those are all things that great leaders have. Wait requires strength. And we don't always think about massive success as weight, but I promise you that it is. And it requires strength. You don't hand a 50-pound weight to someone who's only ever trained with 5 pounds. Influence, it requires stability. If criticism can destabilize you, influence will absolutely destroy you. Growth requires regulation. If success makes you feel manic, if delay makes you depressed, if silence makes you spiral, then the waiting season is mercy for you. It increases your tolerance for expansion. The vision is not just about what you build, it's about who you must become to hold it. Because you might get lucky. You might have some massive success. I mean, how many times have you guys heard about people who win the lottery and win $10 million? It's something like 70% of them are bankrupt within 2 years. Why is that? Well, that's because they didn't have the capacity. They didn't become the person who was capable of holding it. So let's talk about the cost of not waiting well. Rushing is expensive, very expensive. When you rush, you're going to make premature decisions. When you say yes, when you should sit, you say no, when you should endure. You pivot because you're uncomfortable, not because you're led to pivot. Emotional reactions create long-term consequences. One impulsive post, one reactive message, one ego-driven announcement, one financially irresponsible move. Waiting literally protects you from yourself. Most of the damage we experience is not from the enemy. It's from impatience. Rushing leaks energy. Rushing leaks money. And rushing leaks credibility. And spiritually, rushing disconnects you from trust. Waiting builds trust. Rushing builds anxiety. The world glorifies speed, but speed without structure collapses every single time. You don't need to move faster. You need to move steadier. Here's the shift. Stop asking when it will happen. Start asking, who am I becoming while I wait? Waiting is not about the timeline. It's about identity. Become the person who can wait without spiraling, without forcing, without comparing, without announcing every move, without needing constant proof. Secure. If it's delayed, you're still chosen, right? You're regulated. If it's quiet, you're still called. You're rooted. If no one is clapping, you're still building. You're unshaken. If others accelerate faster, you stay steady. That's called faith in obscurity, because obscurity is not invisibility. It is insulation. It is your preparation season. It is your time. It's your getting ready. God often develops people in private before ever revealing them in public. If you can't handle hidden seasons, you will never be able to handle visible ones. Waiting is not a delay tactic. It's a maturity test. And maturity is what makes increase sustainable. All right, here's where we're going to land this. The real question isn't when will this happen? Again, the real question is, can you stay steady long enough to carry it? Can you trust without constant proof? Can you stay consistent when no one's clapping for you? Can you endure the middle and not just celebrate the beginning? Can you let perseverance finish its work? Most people quit in the middle. The beginning is exciting, right? The end is rewarding. The middle is refining. The middle is where leaders are formed. They're forged in the fire. The discipline of waiting is not glamorous, but it's powerful. If your goal is to increase your income and increase your success, I assume that your goal is also to be able to hold it when you get it, because I can tell you from personal experience, getting to the top of the mountain and then losing it is far worse than getting through the waiting season and refining yourself. I've had to learn it multiple times in my life. So the discipline of waiting is not glamorous, but it's very powerful, because waiting is not where dreams die. Waiting is where depth is built. Waiting is where stability forms. Waiting is where identity solidifies. Waiting is where strength renews. If you can master the middle, you can sustain the promise. So my advice to you today would be to stay steady, stay faithful, stay formed, and let the process finish. All right. So that